Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our special companion video. Now, every day on the John Campea Show and later in the afternoons on Open Mic, we take live questions from the audience, but quite often we don't have time to get to all of them. So what we do is we take all those live questions that we didn't get around to on the live shows, and we address them here on the companion video. We get a lot of good ones in here. So without wasting any time, let's dive right into it. And the first question we're going to get to here is from Luna Comics, who writes, why do people need to put logic into movies or value movies based on how logical it is? Shouldn't we value movies on how entertaining they are instead of how logical they are? Well, it all depends on the movie, Luna. Like, here's the thing. Movies need to follow, once a movie starts to get ridiculous, it loses us. Like, there's going to be a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, me included, that once a movie just starts defying all of its own logic rules, like different movies can have different rules of logic. You know, you would hold a realistic, murder mystery in New York City to different logic rules than, say, a Superman movie. But even in a Superman movie, a Superman may redefine what logical boundaries there are, but it still has its own set of logic boundaries, right? So, for instance, if in the Superman universe, a bullet can bounce off him, then by that logic, a baseball being thrown by some kid off of Superman's leg shouldn't break Superman's leg, right? So a Superman movie has a different standard of logic, but it has its own set of logic. And you want a movie to stay within that, because a movie, you say, why can't a movie just be entertaining? Well, a movie becomes less entertaining the more it starts just going through all of its own logic barriers. Because that's where stories are told, or within certain frameworks. And once you start busting out of your own framework, even if your framework is different than every other framework, it starts to feel inconsistent, it feels sloppy, it feels messy, and it just loses you. Because movies need to bring you into the movie. And when things happen in the movie that take you out of the movie, then it stops being entertaining. So yeah, I believe movies need to follow logic, whatever their definition of logic is. Star Wars will have a different set of logic than, say, the Hangover movies. Movies like the Harry Potter universe will have a different set of logic than some, romantic comedy will have. They all have different standards of what is logical, but every movie sets up its own framework of logic, and all we ask as audience members is that they stay within their own framework of logic. Because when you don't, it takes you out of the movie, and when you as an audience member are taken out of a movie, it stops being entertaining. So yes, logic is important because it is how we as human beings operate. It's the way our minds work. We need certain frameworks, and I think it's important that they do that. Anyway, and again, any movie can create any set of logic that it wants, just then stay consistent with that set of logic. Let's see, next one comes to us from Yuchiya Obido, who writes, over under 40% that Groot's gaming console gets destroyed, which triggers his rage and becomes useful in the ensuing battle. I bet that will happen. I'm going to take the under. I don't think they're going to make the little gaming console an important part or any kind of a MacGuffin like that. I think it was just a cool little thing to show that he's teenage Groot at this point, and therefore he has the attitude of a teenager, and it was just going to be for a nice little visual gag with Star-Lord. I honestly don't think it's going to play any more of a part in that. It might be a recurring gag, but I don't think it's going to become any kind of necessary plot points. So I'm going to take the under. It's not impossible. Like, if you set the over-under at 10%, I take the over, but at 40%, I'm taking the under on that. Bomb Squad writes, it wasn't said that only Celestials could hold Infinity Stones. Just that the reason Peter was able to hold one was that he was a Celestial. Well, actually, Peter's not a Celestial. They never said he was a Celestial. But he's descendant from one, but he's also descended from a human being as well. So he's kind of got part Celestial DNA in him, I guess. But no, we saw Ronan the Accuser hold an Infinity Stone. It's just beings of immense power is what Benicio del Toro said as the Collector. Beings of immense power. So, Ronan was able to hold one. I'm sure Thanos is going to be able to hold one as well. But most beings in the galaxy cannot hold one. Even Peter, being part Celestial, he wasn't going to be able to hold on to that stone much longer. That stone was starting to rip him apart. So, and it was only because the rest of his team came along to kind of absorb it as well that he was able to hold on as long as he could. But he wasn't going to be able to hold on to that stone for long. So even he, being part Celestial, couldn't hold on to it for long. which just kind of tells you how powerful Ronan is and how powerful Thanos must be. So it's going to be interesting to see how they pursue that as they go forward. All right, next one comes to us from Triforce, of course, who writes, I love some of your guys' screen names. How bummed are you that Khabib and Tony are not going to fight this weekend? It is at least the 5th time that the fight has fell through for the UFC. It's actually the 4th time. If I'm not mistaken, it's the 4th time that fight has fallen through. And to be honest with you, I would have been very, very bummed had it not been that Max Holloway stepped up to take the fight. I think that's going to be a great fight. I think that fight's going to be every bit as good, if not better. I actually think Holloway presents more problems to Khabib than Ferguson did. I don't think Ferguson had a chance against Khabib. I think Holloway has a chance. I'm still taking Khabib in that fight, but I think Holloway has a chance, whereas I didn't think Tony Ferguson did. So I think it's an even more interesting fight. So I'm not all that bummed out, actually, by the end of the day. Bomb Squad writes, do you think Thanos was scared of Odin / the Ancient One? I've had so many people ask me this question, at least about Odin, not about the Ancient One. So many people have want to talk about and ask me, do I think Thanos was scared of Odin? Yeah, I do. I don't think it's a coincidence that Odin dying is coinciding with the timing that Thanos decides to make his move on the universe. I don't think it's a coincidence. Now, in the movie, they might say it has nothing to do with it, and that's fine if that's the case. But I think there is a connection between Thanos making his move now and the passing of Odin. So yeah, I do think he was cautious of Odin. I do think he was maybe a little bit scared of Odin. As far as the Ancient One goes, probably not. I don't think he was scared of the Ancient One, but Odin, I think so. Bomb Squad writes, again, over-under for Infinity War breaking opening weekend record. I'll set the over-under at 15% right now. Actually, this morning, Deadline released the first tracking numbers for Avengers Infinity War, and it was tracking right around 200, maybe a little bit north of 200 plus. That's a long way off from 240. So I'm still going to take 15%. 15% that it breaks the opening weekend record. I don't think it's going to catch The Force Awakens, but it's going to do real, real good. We'll just have to wait and see. Kevin Komaki writes, asking for a cool girl who is watching, do you think / remain hopeful that we will see a good anime adaptation from Hollywood? And if so, how should Hollywood go about doing it? Well, it's the same way you go about making any good movie. Make a good movie. There's no other secret formula. There's no other secret button. There's no other, you just got to do this. No. You have to do what is one of the most impossible things in the world to do. Make a good movie. Making a good movie is not easy. So many people who haven't got the slightest clue about filmmaking just think, just make a good movie. That's easy. Just make a good movie. All you have to do to make a good movie is make sure you do this, this, and this. Idiots. Making a good movie is monumentally difficult. It's next to impossible. So how do you go about doing it? Just worry about making a good movie. That's it. There's no other secret formula. There's no other secret button they got to push and that will make a movie a good movie. No, there's nothing like that. There's no other secret than just make a good movie, which is just starting off one of the most impossible things in the world. Is it possible we'll get one? Yeah, absolutely it's possible we're going to get a good one. But the more they put movies out based on anime, and the more that they fail to do well at the box office, like Ghost in the Shell, the harder and harder it's going to be. I doubt that Akira movie that they've been talking about for a long time is actually going to happen. Like, for all I know, they're already shooting it, but I have my doubts that movie's even going to happen after what happened with Ghost in the Shell. So it's an uphill battle. They've got an uphill battle to climb for sure. ZCM Zombie Custom Maps writes, what's better, IMAX 2D or IMAX 3D? Well, if you know me, I hate 3D, so I will always say IMAX 2D. So I'm the wrong guy to ask because I'm completely biased. Well, I'm not biased. I don't have any, advantage to liking or disliking 3D. I just don't like it. I mean, that's just it. So if you ask me, which do I prefer, IMAX 3D or 2D? I will always say 2D because I do not like 3D at all. I'm not a fan of 3D. That's not to say it's always bad. I've seen some good 3D stuff. Priest was pretty good in 3D. Avatar was pretty good in 3D. Whatchamacallit? The one, Beowulf the animated one, was pretty good in 3D. There's some pretty good 3D stuff. I just will usually choose to take the 2D option if I have the option. Let's see. Devontae Brown writes, John, to clarify, critically, I think Lethal Weapon 1 to 2 are the best, but Lethal Weapon 4 might be the most fun. How did 3 and 4 get bad reviews? I'll be honest with you, I don't remember 4 getting bad reviews. Let me look this up here. By far, Lethal Weapon 4, and I like 1 and 2, and you know what? I don't even remember 3. That tells you how forgettable I don't even remember 3. Let's see. Yeah, because I can remember the plot and everything of Lethal Weapon 1. I can remember the plot and everything of Lethal Weapon 2. I can remember the plot and everything of Lethal Weapon 4. I cannot remember Lethal Weapon 3. I can't even remember it. I know I saw it. I can't even remember it. But anyway. But yeah, you're right. On the tomato meter, Lethal Weapon 4 only has a 52%. So by the slightest of edges, the majority of film critics liked it by 2%. So the majority of film critics liked it, but a lot of film critics didn't. So I don't know. To me, it's the best one. It's the most fun. I just think it's the best one. It was really the culmination of the growth of all the characters. To me, Lethal Weapon 4 is the best one, but that's just my opinion. Thanks for sharing that, Devontae. Let's see. The number Thor writes, thoughts on Lethal Weapon show? Never watched it. I had a few people tell me that they actually thought it was pretty good. But to be honest, nothing about it interested me when I saw the previews. So I have very, very little time to watch TV. As you guys know, I only watch about 6 or 7 shows. So I had no desire to spend any of my time on it. So I've never seen it. Again, I've heard pretty good things about it, but I just myself have never watched it. Florian Stumpf writes, I need a Felipe bobblehead in my life. No kidding. Felipe the sentient dancing microphone someday will make his glorious film debut. When and where, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that when they do, that Pops will want to make a Felipe the sentient dancing microphone bobblehead. Count on it. All right. Hector Jeter writes, been listening to you every day. Well, thank you so much, Hector. I appreciate everything you do for the film fan community. My side lift money is going towards super chats. Have a great day. Well, thank you so much, Hector. And you know what? Honestly, I've actually, you know what? I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say this at all because it undermines myself. So I should not say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There are, and a couple of you know this, I have actually a couple of times reached out to a couple of you guys, my viewers, who were sending in like a lot of super chats. And I won't name names, but I've reached out to a couple and said, hey, dude, first of all, thank you so much for supporting me and the show with the super chats. I said, but I'm a little concerned because you seem to be sending in a lot. And I just want to make sure you're not like draining the bank account sending in super chats because you're more valuable to me as a viewer than you are as somebody sending in super chats. And yes, super chats keep my show in the air. That's great. But, don't send too much. Like cap it. Don't send in a lot. Because while I need support to make the channel work. Yes, I don't want to have somebody spending their rent money on super chats, spending all that stuff. And I've had some great exchanges, some great back and forth conversations with people over that. So make sure that when you send, and this is true for everybody, I love the support, but make sure if you're sending in super chats, you want to support it. Awesome. Great. That's wonderful. But please make sure that you're doing it within your means. Please make sure you're not spending money that's supposed to be spent on life necessities or anything like that when you do it, because at that point, that makes me not want to do the channel anymore. So by all means, support the channel, be a Patreon supporter, send in super chats, all that kind of stuff. But I do ask, please make sure that as you're sending them in, that you're sending in discretionary money, the money that you have to spend on stuff like that. Please make sure you're not spending money you should be spending on other things when you're sending in on super chat. I'll find another way to survive. That's fine. Just please don't put yourself in any trouble. So anyway, I had some great discussions with some people about that. So thank you for that, Hector. I appreciate that. Next one comes to us from Abraham Novello, who writes, favorite subgenre. I love heist films. Well, it depends on what you call a subgenre, right? To some people, comic book movies are a subgenre. To some people, comic book movies are a subgenre of action films. Some people will say that actually action is a subgenre of it. I mean, it really all depends. If you've watched me for any period of time, you know that I am also a big sucker for heist films. I love heist films. I love political dramas. I'm really big on political dramas. I love a good murder mystery. And so few good murder mysteries, because a murder mystery, you got to make the movie not just like, oh, we're just watching the movie and then you'll reveal to us at the end. You got to, in a good murder mystery, is a mystery that when the murderer is revealed or the mystery is revealed at the end, that there is, if you go back through the movie, a reasonable chance that you could have followed along and come to that conclusion. Murder mysteries that just go, oh, I mean, there's no way anybody would have known this because they hid all that information through the movie. So you get to the conclusion of the movie and they reveal who the murderer is. It's like, there's no way anybody would have been able to guess that. Like, there's just no way because all this stuff was not revealed to us. That, to me, that's not fun. It's tough to make a good murder mystery, but yeah, I've got a lot of subgenres I'm a big fan of, but heists are certainly big one of them. Political dramas, murder mysteries, things like that. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from NPE94, who writes, in an age of streaming / home view, are MPA ratings effective / enforceable? Do you think the system still fit for purpose in changing cinematic landscape? Yes, because first of all, the MPA rating system is not enforceable by anybody. There's nobody legally required to enforce MPAA rules. Movie theaters, movie theaters don't have to abide by MPA ratings. Walmart doesn't have to abide by MPA ratings. You know, when Walmart says we won't carry any movies that have an X rating on it, or an NC-13, whatever it's called, that's Walmart's choice. That's not the MPAA. That's not the movie theater industry. That's Walmart's choice. When a movie theater says, I believe at any rate, when a movie theater says, we won't let kids in, under a certain age into an R-rated film. If a movie theater wanted to let them do that, they could. The MPAA has no legal authority over movie theaters. The MPAA simply puts that out as a guideline for businesses if they want, and for families if they want. It's really there as a guideline. They're not enforceable. Movie theaters choose to have certain rules for themselves when it comes to MPAA ratings and things like that. Local retailers choose what rated stuff they want to put on their shelves or not. The MPAA is simply there as a guide. And I really don't have a problem with it. I think it is completely valid. So yes, as a guide, as a suggestive guide, it is still completely fit. Because all it is giving a suggestion, hey parents, this movie, which we reviewed in advance so you don't have to, we're putting an R on this. Now, it's up to you if you want your kid to watch it or not, but we're just letting you as a parent know so you can make an informed decision that we have put a rating of R on this, but it's up to you, the parent, if you want to show it to your kids or not. We just want to make sure you're able to make informed decisions. So now look, there are flaws with the MPA system. Absolutely, it's been well documented, yes, but in generally speaking, it's a pretty good system. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Hector Jeter, who writes, at the gym listening to the Creed training montage. That's a good one. Intense movie scores get me motivated. Do you listen to any movie-related scores while at the gym? No, actually I don't. I listen to a lot of movie scores sometimes when I'm sitting around working. But I don't often listen to movie scores when I'm at the gym. I got like a lot of playlists or stations that I listen to, but no, I generally don't listen to them at the gym, but that's a good one. That's a good one to use at the gym for sure, Hector. Let's see. Jordan Benjamin writes, where did Jordan go? There he is. Would DC be smart to reboot with Batman, build his rogues gallery, hinting at other heroes, see what the interest is, and then do more character films? No. Look, if you want to reboot with Batman, that's fine. That's fine. But don't play this game of, let's be reactionary. Let's hint at other characters and see what the audience reaction is. No, that's not how you do business. That's how an amateur high school film student does things. That is not how a pro studio does it, nor how they should do it. Have your plan, believe in your plan, go with the plan. Not, let's tease Wonder Woman and see if people like it. That's not how you do a film universe. That's not how you plan a cinematic universe. Do you think that's how the MCU didn't? Newsflash, it isn't. The MCU believes in their properties. They believe in their creative process. They make whatever they want to make. Hell, they made Guardians of the Galaxy. The key is they made a good film. Doesn't matter what character it's based on, they made a good movie. That's the important thing. Then whoever the character is in that great movie, great. They're now over with the audience. There is no one set formula. All they got to do is just make good movies. There's no other formula. Like, well, the formula is you have to start with Batman. Although there's nothing wrong with that. I'm all for starting with Batman. Absolutely, I'm all for starting with Batman. But it's not like you have to start with Batman. I mean, you literally could start with a movie version of Adam. You could start with a movie version of Lobo, and you'd say that's starting your... As long as if it's good and the audience likes it and the critics like it and it does okay financially, you've started with a solid foundation. There's no other mysterious thing about it that goes along with it, but absolutely not this whole thing about teasing other heroes and see what the interest is and then maybe do more. No. That's not how you do it. That is not how you do it. That is how losers do it. And I think that's kind of how Warner Brothers have been treating their DCEU for a while. But it's definitely not the way Marvel's done it. Marvel just has belief in their process, belief in their creators, belief in themselves, and they make their plan and they go for it. And at the end of the day, winning cures everything. You make a good movie, then you've won. It doesn't matter that nobody had ever heard of Guardians of the Galaxy. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if hardly anybody out there has ever read a Doctor Strange comic. Doesn't matter. We believe that we have the creative process and we have the right creators and we believe in ourselves and we believe in our plan and we believe if we make good movies that who the character is in it, whether it's Ant-Man or the Guardians or Doctor Strange, it doesn't really matter if they're not popular. If they are popular or not, doesn't matter. If we build a good movie around them that people love and critics love, we believe this thing will be successful. And that's what they do. Winning. That's the strategy. Winning cures everything. But if you don't start with a solid movie that is widely loved by critics and audiences, it doesn't matter. Everything else doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you start with a Batman movie. It doesn't matter if you start with a Superman movie. It doesn't matter if you start with a Flash movie or an Aquaman or anybody else. It doesn't matter. It all comes down to quality. Getting the audience on board. DC hasn't done that yet. Reboot. And just make sure whether you start with Batman, which is what I would do, but hey, whether you start with Batman or start with another character, it doesn't matter. Just make it great. And then make your plans from there. So that's just kind of my thought. Anyway, Tramer Mad Jadiri writes, which film noir film is the one that you think of? And which is one of your favorites? Cheers. Keep it up, longtime fan. Well, film noir is an odd thing because there's no really big set definition about what is film noir. I've heard some people call certain films film noir when they're really not. I mean, Sunset Strip, Touch of Evil, what another couple of really good ones. Well, those are the first ones that pop into my head. I mean, one of the more modern incarnations of one is LA Confidential. So these are the films that pop into my head instantly when I think of film noir, but it still is. I've had a number of debates with people about if a certain movie is film noir or not, and it's really more of a style than anything. It's harder to identify than, say, like a Western. You can see if something's a Western or not. It's a little more difficult to nail down, but those are some of the films that come to my head right away when I think about that. Jai Sashdev writes, recently, I saw the Deadpool 2 trailer in Hindi, Indian language. It kind of off felt it is a different trailer than watched Deadpool in that language was like an alternative version. Well, I mean, I can understand that. Like when you have language barriers and there's translations of languages, I'm sure it comes. I mean, one of the funniest things in the world is like seeing movie titles in Chinese that have like completely different meanings. Or watching hearing what the direct translation is of dubbing and subtitling in other languages is like, what? I mean, it is the perfect use of the term lost in translation. No two languages have perfect counterparts for all of our vocabulary. And therefore, there's always an art of interpretation. And what is the closest thing that resembles that? And sometimes the results can be hilarity. Sometimes the results can be confusion. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that probably watching it in Hindi or probably in many other languages as well, it probably comes across a lot differently than somebody who's a native English speaker like myself, seeing a Deadpool movie in English or a Deadpool trailer in English than somebody else watching in another language when there's been some translation, and some stuff will get lost in translation. But it is kind of funny. I'd be curious to see that. I'd love to see what that is and how it directly translates into Hindi. That would be interesting to see. Luis David writes, John, I know that you love Injustice Year One. I totally do. And I love it too. But have you read the new DC event, Dark Knight's Metal? It was amazing. No, I haven't read anything since Rebirth. I didn't read, I mean, I got into a bunch of the New 52, but then when the Rebirth stuff happened, it's not that I hated Rebirth or anything like that. It's just like, oh, another new thing? Okay, well, and I haven't really read anything since. I picked up some back issues on Comixology and stuff of some other stories I wanted to read, but I really haven't read anything new from DC since. And one of these days I'm going to get caught up in all that stuff, but no, I have not read Dark Knight's Metal. Haven't read that one yet. Jarib Whitehead writes, Hi, John. On BoxOfficeMojo.com, there's a China box office and a Hong Kong box office. What's the difference? Thanks from St. Louis. I'm not really sure. Oh, look, for a long time, Hong Kong belonged to Britain. And I think it was in the 80s that it finally transferred back over, and it's still kind of treated the same. You know, it's funny. Anne was just in Hong Kong for 2 months. You guys remember, I think it was around November. Anne was gone for 2 months, and I was on my own for 2 months. I barely survived. Anyway. And she was funny because she's like, everybody there speaks English and has a British accent. She said it's the weird, most off-putting thing that, because she, as an Asian woman, she's like, I'm there, surrounded by Asians who are all speaking English with a British accent. She says it's the weirdest thing. So that kind of threw her off. But it's because Hong Kong was a British colony, or a British, under the British flag for a very long time, and then got transferred back over to China. So I don't know if there's some ways like the box office, I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know if they track Hong Kong as a separate thing or not. I'm guessing maybe they do if they say there's a Chinese box office and there's a Hong Kong box office. Maybe they still look at it a little bit differently. I'm not really sure on that. It's a great question. You guys should look that up. See if there's a mystery for you to solve. It's a great question. I just don't have the answer for it. Unbeatable writes, who would win in a fight, Roy Nelson or Donald Gibbs' Bloodsport character, Ray Jackson? I'll go Roy. Big Country Nelson would probably win that fight. You know what's funny? You mentioned Bloodsport. Last night, side story, Ann and I go to the ArcLight Theater in Hollywood to watch A Quiet Place. So we go there last night to watch it. And this, first of all, one of the concession stand guys recognized me and said hello, and it was wonderful meeting him. And then this other guy also comes up and says, John Campia. And he's one of the dudes in Bloodsport 2. One of the dudes from Bloodsport 2. And he introduced himself and we chatted for a minute. But I mean, we were already late for the movie, so we were heading in. So I only had a chance to just chat with him for just a second. We talked about a couple little things, but it was really kind of fun. It's like, oh yeah, man, you were in Bloodsport 2, which was really fun. So speaking of Bloodsport, I'll take Roy Nelson, although Donald Gibb would be a great MMA fighter for sure. Let's see. Dave Aikens writes, Yo, John, if Marvel approached you to mocap or voice Devil Dinosaur from the MCU, would you accept? I got asked this exact same question last week. And I don't think it was from Dave Aikens. But I was asked, I don't know why I was asked this exact same question, but I was asked this exact question, would I do mocap or perform Devil Dinosaur? Of course I would. Why not? I mean, who wouldn't? You're offered a job to be in a movie, even if it's just mocap stuff, and you probably get a paycheck. Of course I would. You would too. Absolutely I would. Santiago Villa writes, wow, Ready Player One is an excellent adaptation. I read the book, and sincerely, Spielberg and the writers of the movie script did a hell of a job. Have a nice day, John. Thank you so much. I love the movie. I eat that movie up. I just adore that movie. I wish it was doing better at the box office. I never read the book, but it's really cool hearing from your perspective as somebody who did read the book, saying that they did a nice translation. I'm glad you liked it. Almost everybody I've spoken to who has seen it loves it. I just don't know why more people didn't go out to give it a chance, because the movie is wonderful. Dave Aikens writes, Hey man, are you a fan of the classic Superman Fleischer animated shorts? Someone put them on YouTube and they look amazing. Even today, they hold up well. Never seen them. Never seen them. But now that you've mentioned them on YouTube, you know what? I'm going to pop this into YouTube right now. There we go. I've got that all set up in YouTube now. So a little bit later, I'm going to watch some of them. Like, I know the ones you're talking about. Like, I understand the style, but I've never actually watched them myself, to be honest with you. So, but now I got them lined up, and I'll take a look at them when I can. All right, next up, Michael Crossan writes, my favorite U2 songs, Sunday Bloody Sunday and Ultraviolet. Oh, great songs. Somebody earlier on the John Campus show today asked me what my all-time favorite U2 song was, and U2 is my all-time favorite band. And they also happen to have my all-time favorite song. Not just favorite U2 song, but my all-time favorite song, Where the Streets Have No Name. But they've got like 40 songs that I just love. And I can pick up my guitar and play it any time. Whether it's In God's Country, it is absolutely one of my favorite. Elevation is fantastic. Whole bunch of the stuff, almost anything off the Joshua Tree album, almost anything off the Actung album, almost anything off the, I just love their stuff. But yeah, Sunday Bloody Sunday, that's probably their anthem song. Sunday Bloody Sunday is probably their anthem song. Yet the battle's just begun to claim the victory that Jesus won. I mean, it's an anthem song. And it's great. So those are some great picks. All right. Brandon Torres writes, I think Peg made it clear that Rian Johnson went against JJ's original plan, but I'm fine with that. It's just like how Dad Vader wasn't always the plan. Well, no. Actually, Brandon, we talked about this on the John Campus show earlier this morning. Peg did not. As a matter of fact, if you actually look at Peg's comments, Peg did not say that at all. He said, I think at some point they kicked around an idea about Rey's lineage being something else. And then he went on to say several times, but I don't know. The most Peg said was, if you read his exact word-for-word statement, he says, yeah, I think they kicked around some other idea about this or that or the other thing. But then you look at what Daisy Ridley said, and Daisy Ridley directly says, no, this is what they did in The Last Jedi. Daisy Ridley said in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, right from The Force Awakens is exactly what they told me we were doing with Rey and her parentage. Daisy Ridley Daisy Ridley didn't go, I think maybe we were talking about, no, Daisy Ridley said, what we did with Rey's parents in The Last Jedi is exactly what they always told me we were going to do with them ever since The Force Awakens. Like right from when we started The Force Awakens. So Simon Pegg, see, that's the thing. This game of broken telephone starts going around. Pegg never said definitively, JJ had a different idea for it. No, Pegg's statement was I think at some point they were kicking around some ideas. That's the extent of what Simon Pegg said. Go look it up. That's exactly the extent of what he said. Now you take that and compare that to what Daisy Ridley said, the star of the franchise, and she says, what we did with it here is what they told me right from the beginning we were going to do. It was completely consistent. So, no, this whole notion, Pegg made it clear that Rian Johnson went against, no, that is not what he said. That is not what he said. I understand that's what some headlines are saying, but go beyond the headlines and actually read the statements. And the statements make it pretty clear that Simon Pegg was very non-committal about it completely. Devontae Brown writes, John, article said Spielberg says Indy will continue after 5 with a woman, and no, they do not, Devontae. Let me finish reading this. Article said Spielberg says Indy 5 will continue after 5 with a woman and will change the name to Jones, as in Joan''. Hopefully it doesn't seem like a gimmick. No, Spielberg never said that. Somebody asked him directly, would they be willing to do it with a woman? And Spielberg simply said he's open to the idea. That's all he said. That's all Spielberg said. And then he jokingly said, I guess we'd have to rename it Jones, like Joans. That's, again, an example of people make the most ridiculous headlines. Read the statement. Spielberg never said that after Harrison Ford is done, they're going to do it with a woman. They never said that. He said, I'd be open to it. He didn't close off the idea. He didn't shoot it down. But that's the extent of it. And then he was kind of joking around with the whole Jones thing. So no, Devontae, Spielberg never said they will continue with the woman and they're going to change the name to Joan. No, he didn't. He did not say that. Read the statement and just be clear on that. Joseph Ryder writes, hello from Danshui, China. Oh, hello, Joseph. Love watching you after work. I know you like hot toys. I do like hot toys. Do you collect any other toys like Symbiote Studios or Funko stuff? Well, I have a lot of pops, and the pops you see behind me is just that's just the surface of what I have. Most of my pop collection is still all boxed up in a garage, and I'm hoping. I gotta tell you a little secret. Ann and I put in an application for a bigger place right up the street from where we live, like a 6-minute walk from where we live. But it's got a lot more square footage. More importantly, its spare bedroom, its second bedroom, is literally more than twice the size of this room that I'm in right now. And we put in the application yesterday. I am so excited. I know if we don't get this place, because there were a whole bunch of other people there looking at it too. If we don't get this place, you're going to see a grown man cry. I want this place so bad, man. It is so ridiculously expensive living in Burbank. Like, it's crippling. We pay way more on rent. We pay more in rent in Burbank, but this is where we have to live for, number one, the industry, but also Ann's work is like 10 minutes away, so we can't live much further. We pay more in rent in Burbank than most places you would, for a 2-bedroom apartment in Burbank, than most places you would pay in a mortgage for a 4-bedroom giant house. The most places in the country you could have a 4-bedroom giant house and pay less in mortgage than what we pay in rent in Burbank. It's crippling. It's depressing. It kills me. So finding places with any decent amount of space around here is great. I know this is not what you're asking about, but this all goes to the whole thing of if we can get this place that gives me a bigger studio space, you're going to see more of my Funko stuff. I'm not a big toy collector, to be honest. Like, I really love hot toys, but I don't spend a lot of my money on hot toys. I'm really more cautious with my money. Some people might say I'm cheap, but I am cautious financially. I approach all financial matters pretty cautiously. So that's why I have like maybe 5 hot toys. Whereas I have some friends of mine that have like 105 hot toys. I can't invest my money that way. So I don't collect a whole huge hell of a lot of stuff. But I really did get into Funko stuff for a while. Mostly because, I mean, Funko, they're so creative and so cute. And they just spark imagination. And they're relatively really cheap. So I got in the habit for a while where I was buying a whole ton of them. Anyway, so I still got a whole ton of Funko. Maybe you'll see them pop up behind me here pretty soon. All right, just a couple more questions left, and then we'll call it a day. Jake C. writes, funniest encounter getting recognized by a fan. Funniest. I still think, I've told this story before, but Donald Faison. Of course, you'll remember he's been in a bunch of stuff, but most notably, of course, he was in Scrubs. He was Zach Braff's best friend in Scrubs, right? And he's great. I'm a fan of his. I loved him on Scrubs. I loved that show. But anyway, it was a funny encounter. I've told this story before. Some of you have heard this, but I'm at the Star Wars The Force Awakens world premiere. And the premiere's done. We're now at the after party. And I'm in the bathroom standing at a urinal. And I'm peeing at a urinal. And the guy beside me, I don't know, I'm weird. I can't make eye contact with people when I'm peeing at a urinal, okay? I just can't do it. So my eyes just stay straight forward. But the guy standing next to me, he's like, hey man, John Campion, man, I love your shit, man. You're like, your show's my shit and blah, 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 blah. And starts talking on about this, like the Star Wars show I was doing. And I'm like, thanks, man, thanks. That's cool. I had no idea it was Donald Faison. And then, so he finishes and he's going, washing his hands and he's starting to leave. And I finish this as he's leaving. And that's when I finally look at him. I realize, oh my God, that's Donald Faison. That's Donald Faison. And fortunately, I was lucky enough that I was able to catch up to him later and talk to him. But that's one of the funnier ones to me. Okay. Tony Johnson writes, which genre would you like to see Quentin Tarantino experiment with next? I have a bizarre need to see him make a crazy R-rated sword and sorcery spectacular, or maybe an uber-violent space opera. Look, if I want to see him do something different, I'd love to see him do something different. How about something that's not rated R? How about some of this not rated R? A good PG-13 rom-com directed by Quentin Tarantino. Go. Something like, let's see, I'd love to see Quentin Tarantino stretch himself, because right now he's got this little box that he kind of lives in, which is this hyper-violent R-rated thing, and that's kind of his wheelhouse. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. A lot of filmmakers would love to have a particular wheelhouse that they excel in as much as Quentin Tarantino excels in that. But if you're asking me what's something different I'd like to see him, I'd like to see him break out of that box. I'd like to see him do anything other than something hyper-violent or R-rated. Because to me, that's just another Quentin Tarantino movie, which are great. But if you want to talk about him doing something different, then let's not pitch ideas. That's just him doing the same thing that he always does. Whether it's with, mobsters or sorcerers or whatever, it's still the same thing. If it's just another R-rated, hyper-violent, whatever it is. So I would really dig to see him do something a little bit different. I would love to see him break out of that box and see what he can do with that. But if he makes more hyper-violent R-rated stuff, so be it. I'll enjoy that too. All right, and the final question today comes to us from Micah Quinn, who writes, have you ever been to Cleveland International Film Festival? I am seeing Beirut. Never been. I've been to Cleveland. I like Cleveland. But I've never been to the Cleveland International Film Festival. To be honest with you, I've never even heard of the Cleveland International Film Festival until right this moment, Micah. So thank you for sharing that with me. But no, I've never been there for the festival, so I'm not even quite aware of it. I'd love to know more. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the companion video. We are now all caught up on all the live questions. Don't forget, guys, every day, in the morning, we got the John Campea Show where we take a little bit of live questions, but every afternoon we've got Open Mic where we take a whole ton of live questions. Make sure you guys join us there for that stuff as well. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment. Thanks a lot for joining me, and until my next video, bye-bye.